So let's move on to the second step in our process, which I don't know whether you can see that there, says get going. So what's included there when we're thinking about our get going, and what does it even mean? Let's have a look. Okay. So one of the things that sometimes happens for us at USpire is that we're asked to run something like negotiation skills workshop as a team development workshop. And one of the things that that often happens is that when we ask lots of questions in our discovery sessions and the chemistry calls, we find that actually it's not really the visioning part is not really clear. So it's not really clear what negotiations are required or what the level of negotiations, for example, price is required, or indeed potentially what strategy the team should be working on that they then need to plan their negotiations on, or what they're actually selling and at what to whom. And what that shows is that actually negotiation is not a mobilizing it's not actually a mobilizing activity. Negotiation is actually in the next step, it's developing. And what needs to happen often with our clients is that they need to be really clear about vision and then mobilize with the basics to make sure people have got going. So what happened at Big Bus Tours? So what happened at Big Bus Tours as a result of developing this vision was that the team made sure that everybody in the business was really clear about the vision. And here's it's kind of in all the training documentation, made sure that everybody's really, really clear about the vision. They actually also created a mission, which I also really love, actually, to inspire their spirit of adventure, and then trained and role modeled brilliant customer service, fantastic clean vans, buses, and everything that all of those little building blocks towards mobilizing, towards being the number one thing to do in every world famous city. They gradually mobilized by training, making sure that everybody's clear about their part in the process, giving valuable feedback when not. They created mentors so that the supervisors had a manager mentor so that to help them and share their experiences. In the mobilizing stage, it's important to have a mentor to do that. And the really important thing was to role model that behavior of customers first, tourists first, and we need to make sure they come back to us in all those famous cities. So I have asked another Steve to come and join us, coincidentally, another Steve to come and join us. And I'd like to ask Steve in a moment to share how he has mobilized a sales team. And Steve, I met Steve at the British Medical Journal when we were doing some work with Steve quite a while back. And so I think, Steve, you're going to tell us a story about mobilizing for the Neurosurgical Atlas. You better tell us who they are first.
That's correct. Thanks very much, Amanda. Yeah, delighted to join everybody on the webinar today to provide a brief overview on my experience regarding step 2 of the commercial leadership process, mobilizing growth. So as Amanda said, my original sales leadership experience started at the British Medical Journal. I worked there from 2006 through to 2022, and I was leading the institutional sales team for academic and healthcare sales across the portfolio of nearly 100 journals and also several databases as well. For today's example, though, I wanted to highlight how I put the mobilizing structure into place during my most recent role, and that's at the Neurosurgical Atlas. So the Neurosurgical Atlas is a US-based not-for-profit organization, and I was global sales director there until late 2024. The actual product itself is a gold standard online training and medical education resource for medical students, for residents, doctors in training, as well as experienced neurosurgeons who want to learn new techniques as well. So This mobilization stage is all about getting started with an agreed sales strategy, making sure that the team members are on board with that, they're happy that they know what they're doing and what's expected of them, and really importantly, providing the skills and tools to achieve it together as a team. So Neurosurgical Atlas had been freely available with a personal registration for over 7 years, since 2016. And my task was to introduce a paid subscription model from April 2023 for healthcare systems around the world, so mainly hospitals, hospital trusts, and also academic institutions. And the main reason, with it being a not-for-profit organisation, was to generate a secure, sustainable revenue stream and to shore up the future of the resource. But at the same time, really important to be generating growth internationally. And we had a vision. Our strategy was to get to $1 million of revenue in just 9 months of active selling, which was quite a big ask from a freemium model previously. So when I joined, I also had a sales and operations director working with me internally. And this was really great for ensuring that the systems were robust. The technical side of the product would stand up according to current data standards, and also service levels that are required for modern information systems at this point in time. However, the unusual aspect of the role was that the sales team was entirely remote. So we were a very small organization based in the United States. So the decision was made to work with an experienced, industry-leading European sales partner, and they represented a number of other publishers globally. So we collaborated with them in all regions outside of the US. The planning stage was undertaken over a couple of months. That was alongside my colleagues in the leadership team. And we put a detailed sales strategy together, which was signed off by the board for 2023 to 2025 inclusive. And that also then had an institutional pricing structure in place. So as part of the mobilization process, I needed to ensure that the sales partners, regional directors, and the sales managers themselves at the coalface were fully trained on both the product itself, as well as the selling style that we felt would achieve the best results. So in this case, we were very much looking at consultative sales style, working jointly to find a solution for the customer. All the managers were based in their local territory. So for example, Southern Europe, Germany, Asia Pacific, and Latin America, with me based here in the UK. So the training was achieved with one-to-one product webinars and with personal calls between myself and each sales manager. There were around 17 to 20 of those sales managers in the global team. And those calls took place weekly at least. The KPIs were very clearly laid out, mainly relating to the overall growth strategy expected from the 3-year sales strategy. And the KPIs were mutually agreed by the sales partners, senior management, and importantly, they were understood by the individual members of the sales team. They also had the added incentive of commission to be earned on each new sale as well. So regular feedback was provided at every possible opportunity by both myself as the Neurosurgical Atlas sales director, as well as the regional directors from the sales partner organization. We had monthly calls, we were checking progress towards the agreed quarterly targets, and we wanted to ensure we were still on track with the KPIs. So the next part of the mobilization stage is mentoring, and that plays a key part in creating a fully functioning and effective team that can achieve the targets expected. In my opinion, I think it's preferable that for a successful sales leader to be considered a player manager by their team. The team then appreciates you're fully aware personally and understand the daily challenges that they're facing in the markets themselves. I think managing your sales team with integrity is vitally important to mobilize them effectively. It's really important you're seen as trustworthy, reliable, tenacious. This goes back to the honesty we talked about in the previous example. I think at all times looking to manage the expectations within both the sales team and the leadership team on a realistic basis as well, managing internally and externally, however hard that can appear at the time. Clear and honest communication is also essential as part of the mobilization stage, ensuring that's diplomatic and it's appropriate depending on the local region, but try not to leave any of the situations and the instructions hazy or unclear. I think for me, the key message is, from my experience, certainly as a sales leader, is always lead as you would want to be led. To be a positive role model is crucial to achieving the success and the growth expected by your organization and ensuring the team members are fully committed. It's really vital to keep the sales team 100% on target regarding what is expected of them. But I think at the same time, looking for them to remain enthusiastic about the often challenging sales environment that they face in the markets. So that's my approach to the mobilization, and a specific example there from my most recent role. I'm pleased to say we did achieve the $1 million in the 9 months of trading that we had. So that was a huge team effort to get that over the line. And yeah, I'm very happy to answer any questions as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. I've got a question for you, Steve. How did you manage remotely? So leading globally, remotely, I guess, from your loft office there.
Yes,
Yeah,
funny,
how?
isn't it? I think before COVID, I had always considered myself to be a sales leader that wanted to be in the office. So at BMJ, when we were working with you on our sales academy and getting people motivated and mobilized, it was very important to actually be there in the office. COVID gave me a whole different perspective on that, and I spent my last 2 years at BMJ working remotely, and I think that really helped me with the transition into Neurosurgical Atlas. Every other person in the organization was based in the States,
Right.
and include all the leadership team. So whenever I was having a board meeting, the board meeting would often be at midnight UK time. So it was a question of sort of saying goodnight to the family, getting a coffee, and working from midnight to 1:30 on a board meeting, which was very bizarre. Working with the teams, though, I think it was the most important thing was that personal contact, to make them feel that you were connected at any time, to make them feel that you were available for them to reach out remotely. It was never a problem to have a call, to discuss something on a chat, or to say, look, let's just hop on a video call. I wanted them to feel that that was okay. And with the time difference as well, obviously in the UK, I was slap bang in the middle of US, Europe, Asia. So I really worked hard to make sure that in the morning I was clearing my my messages and my emails from the night before would have come in from the States and Asia. Then I was working very much from midday until about 6 o'clock as a live period of 6 hours with the organization and with the sales managers. And then, although I was generally taking the evening off without any problem, and the organization was very good about that, obviously I would come on if there was a particular deal we were trying to close, or we had a meeting, a leadership meeting, then there were always exceptions. But the team, I think in the post-COVID world, it's much easier to manage people remotely now than it used to be. I think people are a lot more open to it, and they understand the challenges, but also they appreciate if you make yourself available.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to being, as you called it, a player manager, you kind of got to be on the pitch at the times when your teams are on the pitch.
Yeah.
I think there's a question in the chat from JB Jonathan, from Uspire, about what do you mean by diplomatic exactly? What were your challenges?
Yeah, I think I was meaning that particularly from an internal point of view, with the way that you manage those realistic expectations. I think realistic expectations can often be seen as negative connotations. It can be seen negatively within an organization. So managing those expectations, particularly upwards, is really important to do that diplomatically, but to say, this is my realistic view of the situation. But I think doing that with the sales teams as well is just as important, to say, here's what I actually think we can achieve realistically. I guess the other thing I was talking about there was to do with the local variations, being very aware that when you're dealing with international sales teams, you've got whole different sort of outlooks and perspectives, and you've got to be very aware of that when you're effectively managing a sales team that might be based in Singapore, for example, or based in Brazil. You've got to look at those cultural aspects and be very aware of that, and be very diplomatic with having like a more general approach to how you might answer a question or how you might put something across.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that story, and
No
congratulations,
worries.
Million, in a not-for-profit business. If anybody's got any other questions, Steve, and both Steve's actually, please feel free to continue to answer those by chat. And one of the things that they did at Big Bus, from a mobilizing perspective, is be really clear about the levels of skill. They created some skill levels here called working towards, working well, and working wonders. I particularly like that one. And created steps, levels of skill that were intended. I mean, you would think it'd be really straightforward, selling tickets, on the streets, but actually some really core competencies around things like where you position yourself to make sure that you're as visible and helpful to customers, and how you go about greeting somebody in their culture, in their style. Actually, there's way more to it than meets the eye. Having been on the streets in a number of those cities, watching and trying to do it myself, it's a massive skill. I tell you, if you can sell there, you can sell anywhere.